Hi, I'm Joshua Hartshorn from Boston College, and today I want to talk about cross-situational learning. I'll start with an example. I want to tell you a bit about tomas. Tomas are incredibly rare, but I was able to find this image which contains a really nice example of a toma in it. The reason that tomas are so rare is that they're only found in the land of Dax, which is really far away. Here's another picture I found that has a toma in it. The main use for a toma is ceremonial, but okay, at this point you've probably figured out that the toma is this object over here. This is just the process of elimination. It was the only object that was in both pictures. So that's an example of what psychologists call cross-situational learning. The idea is, though, even though any particular time you hear a word it might be ambiguous, there might be lots of things that it could refer to, by paying attention to what is common across all the different times you hear the word, you can work out what it must mean. So in this view, learning words is an awful lot like playing the game Clue. So that seems complicated. Do we really believe that children can keep track of all that information in order to learn words? Well, they might have to. As we discussed in the video A Gru Gava Guy Counted to 10, it's actually pretty rare for children to be told explicitly what a word means. So if they can use cross-situational learning to work out what words mean, that potentially could help them out a lot. In order to better understand whether and how children use cross-situational learning, psychologists carry out stripped-down word learning experiments in which children are shown sets of objects paired with words. These look something like this. Toma, fribble, greeble, fribble, greeble. After some training, the subject is tested on how much they've learned. It turns out that even young children can learn a fair amount this way. Or at the very least, cross-situational learning experiments show that children can learn a lot in the context of a cross-situational learning experiment. How that maps onto behavior in the real world is a separate question, because cross-situational learning experiments, like the one that I just demonstrated for you, assume that children have already narrowed down the range of possible reference to a relatively small set. That is, if the cross-situational learning experiment that I just demoed for you is meant to be a model of the problem that children really face when they're trying to learn language, it's a model in which children float alongside a small set of other objects in an otherwise empty and formless void. In reality, children are presented with scenes that are a lot more complicated. Here there are dozens of objects in view, and let's face it, this is a relatively clean and tidy baby room. Babies are often going to be faced with scenes that look a bit more like this. Or even perhaps like this. So it's worth mentioning that cross-situational learning studies have tended to focus on learning the names of kinds of objects. And in fact, it's a lot easier to see how cross-situational learning might be relevant for learning words like cat, dog, and rabbit, and a bit more difficult to see what role it might play in learning words like truth, justice, and the American way. And even for learning the names of objects, we still have to deal with the types of paradoxes that I brought up in the video A Gru Gava Guy Counted to 10. At the same time, it seems pretty obvious that cross-situational learning does have a role to play in language acquisition. So the right question is probably not, do children use cross-situational learning in acquiring language, but rather, what role does cross-situational learning play in language acquisition? And in fact, there's a lot of very interesting recent and ongoing studies that are trying to delve into exactly what that role might be. And once we know more, I'll make another video.